The time is 7:30. We will, Hal Morris, our chairman, is running late this evening. At this time, I would ask for a recommendation to appoint a chairperson for the evening.
I make a motion to have Jim Heidner be the chairperson for the evening.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Jim?
Okay, tonight, we'll begin with a roll call, first of all.
Chairman Morris. Commissioner Baloo.
Present.
Commissioner Cotton.
Here.
Commissioner Hesner.
Here.
Commissioner Heidner.
Here.
Commissioner Mulcron.
Here.
Commissioner Grog.
Here. Okay, the first item, the only item on the agenda today is a public hearing for case number 1701, which is a petition filed by Rivers Edge of Vernon Hills Development Corp. Of Bannockburn requesting the following: approval to amend the special use permit for a PUD to allow for the increase in density for the residential building from 40 to 52 units with certain variations, including but not limited to setbacks. And second, the preliminary and final site and landscape plan approvals. The property is commonly known as Rivers Edge. It's located at 425 Benjamin Drive, currently in zoned R7, multifamily residential. Who is here to represent the petitioner? Or?
Yeah, the petitioners, they can step forward. Anyone who's willing, or, well, not willing, but who will be speaking on behalf of the petition would need to stand up and be sworn in.
Introduce themselves.
I'm sorry, everyone
Who's going to speak.
swear them in, right?
Do you want to come up? Because you're going to have to
Come up.
first identify yourself.
My name is Jerry Weiss, President of Weiss Development, developer of Rivers Edge.
Helen Weiss. I'm also a principal with Weiss Development and was part of the development team for the Rivers Edge condominium.
I'm Joel Pickus, architect with Construction Realty.
Okay, if you raise your right hand. You so solemnly swear or affirm, as the case may be, that everything you present tonight will be the truth.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, guys, you
Just
can
a
sit down.
point of information for those in the room. This item previously appeared before the Planning and Zoning Commission last year, and February 1st, March 8th, April 19th, where certain recommendations were made to the village board. Those recommendations took place in late last year after several meetings involving the village elected officials and members of the HOA, at which time various site plan changes were made, which led to an appearance before the committee of the whole, where they read the findings, reviewed them, and found that due to the site plan changes that were made as part of the modifications, that it was best to remand this item back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review. And so that's why this item is before you this evening as it's proposed.
Okay,
You're on.
Commissioners, my name is Jerry Weiss, as I indicated, and we're here before you again after the transitions we've gone through in terms of meeting with the mayor, the association, committee of the whole, and back once more before you. What happened in our previous appearance before you is we received a negative recommendation, and I think it was predicated upon three related items, all arising out of the increased density that we were requesting. At that point, we had initially started at 60 units in the front of the committee of the whole. By the time we appeared before you, we had reduced it to 59 units. Those 59 units required a variance of about 0.26 or 0.27 from your parking ratio, from 2.3 to about 2.06. And the concerns that the Plan Commission articulated were the density requiring a variation in parking and the concerns of the residents in terms of the use of a center common loaded garage entrance to the two buildings. If you recall, and as shown up there, there's a center garage You enter in the garage, exactly pretty much in the middle of the site. You go left to phase one, and you would go right in terms of the second building that we're proposing. After that appearance before you, we met with the mayor and members of the phase one development, and we tried to listen, we tried to respond, and we came up with 52-unit proposal, which we now have before you. That 52 units, along with a little bit of reconfiguration of the parking, gets us to the 2.3 parking ratio. Therefore, we no longer request a variance. The second, while there are 52 units, the building in terms of height, square footage, appearance is not noticeable in any way different than the original proposed building. Same amount of square footage, about 103,000 square feet, same height, same materials, same quality of construction. So the third item arising out of our proposal was that the residents were concerned that 52 units now would impact and place a burden on the use of the center garage in terms of loading, ingress, egress. What happens now, and I think is very important to state, is the original development called for two buildings of 40 units each, total of 80 units, with an inside parking space, including the connecting garage, of 124 spaces. Our new proposal, with the increased density in terms of 52 units, now results in 128 spaces. Therefore, the impact on this entrance and egress in the center garage are 4 units from what was always proposed and what everyone understood to be. So in that way, I believe we've really responded to, spoken to, and I hope satisfied the concerns that the Plan Commission and the residents there have. Probably best for me to ask if you have any questions. I'm assuming there's some familiarity. If anyone wants to go back before, the only thing I would, and Joe's staff memorandum was comprehensive and I think did a good job. We're before you because what was planned will not be built in the foreseeable future. It hasn't been built in the last 10 years. We've looked at it, revisited. We are condo builders. We've always looked for that. 1,825 square foot, which was the plan initially, does not find a market there. Right now, we have reduced the square foot per unit to about 1,400 square foot, which we think is a good place to be. It allows for a spacious condominium or a spacious rental. It gives you flexibility in either direction, whatever the market, by the time you really get there and you have something to deliver to the market. I think you have a very flexible and market-friendly product to deliver. So I would like to answer any questions you might have in response to our proposal.
I'll go first, I guess. A few questions. Are you doing these as apartments or condos?
We have no idea at this point.
Okay.
Right now, the market has been apartment-friendly and absolutely not condo-friendly. If that situation changes, we'd be very open to that. That's our preference.
Okay, because in good architecture practice and design, what is feasible for parking for apartments is not always the same as what is for condos. With condos, there's a little bit more flexibility in the way you lay out a parking garage, and I'm specifically referring to your tandem spaces. Tandem spaces really don't work for an apartment building because you can't really control who's parking there and when. If you have multiple, if you have a 2-bedroom apartment, you could have one person who has a car, you could have 2, you could have 4, you could have 2 young couples and each one has a car. So you could have 4 cars. Let me finish. So with that, if you're saying these are apartments, I would negate your 8 tandem spaces right off the bat. You have to be able to park the building. There are also 3 other spaces in the one-story connector that you physically cannot back out of because they're so close to the dividing wall and door. So by my estimations, now I'm a licensed architect and this is what I do.
Okay,
I think you can have 47 apartments or 50 condos based on the parking. If you're doing apartments, I give you 50 spaces outside and 58 inside. If you're doing condos, I give you 50 outside and 66 inside. So to me, it's a difference. If you're saying these are apartments, I don't think you can build more than 47 on this site. I just don't think it'll work
okay.
for parking. And then if you're doing condos, I think you can get up to 50. That being said, I have some concerns on the site. I don't see how a truck can come in here, a delivery truck, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, fire truck, and turn around. There's no turnaround for that. There's no fire lane on the east side of the building. It says 8 feet, but a fire lane is a minimum of 12 feet to 20 feet. There's trees along the north side, so on both buildings now you have 2 buildings that are completely unprotected from fire truck access. The only way a fire truck can get in here is to drive down the road, and then they have to back out into Milwaukee. There's no turnaround for even a UPS truck. So I have the architecture, yeah, it matches, that's fine. It has nothing to do with the exterior. I just don't think you can park the number of units you're requesting.
Commissioner, I'll respond to a couple things you raised at the beginning, and then I think our architect is here. Oh, I'm sorry, pardon me. With regard to the parking in tandem are assigned. They are not free. They're no different than someone parking if it was a condo or if it was an apartment building.
I'll disagree with you.
Well, I don't know. You can police it. You put a number on it. You can deal with it just the way you would with a condominium. That's what a management company would do. I don't see how anyone could pull in and decide to park behind someone that's not them and decide to lock them in. It just couldn't happen. We built a luxury condominium, and I understand it's a condominium in Lincolnshire Place. The percentage of tandem were probably 3 times what we have in this building. It was a heavy use on tandem. Tandem works. It's nice to have side-by-side if you have it, but tandem is a very acceptable.
I agree that tandem works for condominiums. I will disagree with you.
Yeah. Well, these
that it
are
works for
these are
apartments.
units that'll be $2,500 to $3,000 a month. I don't think their behavior is going to be any different than a condominium owner who's they're not going to park that way. Their car will get towed. It's not going to happen. But I appreciate your concern, and I'm happy to discuss if the village wants us to take any other means necessary to enforce that. And I would be happy to explore it, but that's the last thing I think that could happen. I just don't see that at all. With regard to the turnaround, I may defer to Joe, but what happens is that the space has a turnaround situation at the very end on the east property. Is that correct, Joe? That's the way it was reconfigured.
For a car.
And well, no, it's at least as good as it was before. I'm happy to have the engineer render the calculation, but I know when we got to that, we thought it was better. The fire department will approve any, as they have approved it in the past. We've had no trouble dealing with trucks, delivery, and so on. We can address those issues. I'd be happy to go into detail. I understand their concern of yours, but the village does not allow a building to be unfire protected. It's been my experience, and I think we would have to adequately direct any concerns that the fire department would have, and I believe we can.
Is this plan at that end any different than what you submitted earlier?
Yeah, it is. In order to get more spaces in there, it created a T rather than a half radius and so on.
And has the fire department reviewed it?
I don't believe the fire department has reviewed it, but we're more than happy to submit it to them. It was engineered by Don Fielding at Green Guard Engineering, who's very familiar with the requirements of the fire department, and he thought it would serve. In fact, he thought it was an improvement on what we had before. He could Unfortunately, I didn't know that this was a concern at this point. I'd be happy to have him address it. He could do it in a written statement to all you commissioners, or however you choose to follow, or we can meet directly with the fire department and have them give a response. We feel that it will, we have not diminished the accessibility of the property with regard to fire protection.
So Lincolnshire Riverwoods Fire Protection District has jurisdiction over this property. They did review the revised site plan. That's where their request was to
Oh, that's-
implement
that's
an
correct,
8-foot
yeah.
fire department access along the eastern side of the property. That was at their request, and
Yeah.
with their review, that was their only comment that they approached.
Yeah,
us.
I would like to correct that because I forgot that aspect. We did reconfigure the whole east side of the building in order for them to have access in response to their request to create that 8-foot space that goes underneath the balcony and the extended. So that did slip my mind. There was a response and a recommendation by the fire department, and they've seen it then. I apologize for not remembering that.
One little point of order maybe. When this was brought to us at the very, very beginning, when it was going to be 2 condo buildings, long time ago, I recall a large amount of discussion on fire truck access to this facility. And what we did was we questioned the single-sided access of a fire truck to this building. And we were worried about whether, we were worried about the potential, because I believe this is a wood structure.
No, it's not.
It's not?
I'm not saying we wouldn't, wood is something that's possible, but the initial building was not wood.
Okay. We couldn't get, the fire truck couldn't get to both sides of the building because it was as tall as it was. So when we're looking at this, in retrospect, a long time ago, it was felt to be acceptable for a fire truck to drive onto the site and back out. How, I have no idea. But that's what the discussion was a long time ago.
When you have an access road like this, is it plowed in the winter? Is it kept free from
I'm sorry, when you refer to the access road,
the
which,
fire department access?
oh, you mean on the
fire access?
east,
Yes.
east part of
That's
the
just a
building?
walking space.
Yeah,
not
it's
for trucks.
not to be driven through.
It's a walking space.
Right, they're to carry a
For
hose around
hoses,
that.
It's to carry hoses to other parts of the site.
My concern is if fire hose is 100 feet, what's the length of the side of your building?
East to west?
North to south?
East to west.
Oh, well, I don't know. North to south is about 74 feet.
So, I mean, just based on the site plan, there's no way for them to get a fire hose from a truck to any part of the north side of the building. Is there a written report from the
Unless
fire
there's fire
department?
department connection on every corner
Yeah.
of this thing.
Well, and there could be. The point is that building has been built, they can create a connector.
They've not provided a written report, though that in no way speaks to them being incapable of responding to a fire. So I wouldn't think it's appropriate to believe that it wouldn't be. As of today, they have access to the site. And I think it's also important to note the property is sprinklered. So there's,
It helps.
Where is the snow stacking or snow storage?
Right now, it's being pushed to the end of the property. At some later point, they're going to have to give it some thought in terms of that. Hold on. I think it's anticipated, based on the way it is, that most of the time that you will be able to stack on the eastern part of the driveway. I know it's a concern in terms of, it's a landlocked property. That doesn't change regardless of the size of the building. It's if you put any building there, it's going to, if you put the original building there, it's, these items are, does it have its impediments to a narrow, long site? Yeah, absolutely, no question about it. but it's the way, that isn't predicated upon whether there were 52 units or 40 units.
The difference being is if you're going to consume parking spaces on the east end, in the original design, it was less impactful than if you consume parking spots for stacking snow in the current configuration. I think is, not to
Yeah.
speak for you.
No,
but
you
yeah.
are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And also, is it gonna go into the fire line?
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
is it gonna go into the area designated for fire access?
No,
Is that
I think
another-
that can be kept open, and it should be kept open.
Needs to be, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Is there any reason you couldn't push it off to the south side? The snow?
I'm sorry, to the south? No, there's no reason. It can be pushed onto it can go over the curb toward the preserve, yeah.
It's not, I don't remember.
I mean, I'm
Remember,
not,
some of it is an incline to your site, some of it isn't.
not a lot. It inclines front to back mainly, not not north to south, pardon me.
The other issue you have with snow and parking lots is if there are vehicles in the parking spaces,
Right, you can't.
yeah, unless they have something to lift the snow to put it over, unlike a plow, you just push it to the end of a run.
Yeah. I just think that at a 2.3 ratio for now, for apartments that are smaller than they were before, you're going to wind up with, I'm not saying on every holiday and every situation, but you're going to wind up with some more open space than you do, on a pro rata basis when you have 1,840 square foot average units. So I think you wind up in a manageable situation. I don't want to argue it's optimal, it's not, but it's manageable.
Do you have approval from FEMA to encroach on the 100-year floodplain?
No, that would require a remap. But it would be, it's a very minimal encroachment. There's just the posts, right?
We're not planning on encroaching on the floodplain. Now, there's a floodway that we're going
Oh,
to
pardon me.
modify to create more storage capacity in the pond, and I'm talking for the civil engineer, so forgive me. But we have no intention of encroaching on the floodplain.
And that's how you're accomplishing that with the retaining wall.
Correct.
Yes, yes.
How tall is that retaining wall?
It's about the grade.
I'm sorry?
It's not much more than grade. I don't know, it has to be there's more compensatory storage now. So I don't know what the exact final, they'll have to do a little bit more engineering on terms of that. But right now, it's envisioned as not much more than grade, on this site.
Do you have unit plans designed?
We have it should be part of your package.
My question is because we're seeing elevations, and you're asking us to approve elevations, and if you don't have unit plans designed, how do you know exactly where all the windows and doors are, and where the balconies are gonna be?
I didn't see it in this. This is an old one.
It's probably not in your package, but we did a basic layout. It's not finalized, and it wasn't approved by Helen yet, but that's how we came up with the space, the window space and everything, using the same modules that are in the existing building, putting it throughout, but that's how we came up with that. We do have it's not in here with you, I don't think.
So we're supposed to give an approval on what's presented to us, and if this is not what it's going to ultimately be, is that a fair statement?
The layouts of your,
Well, I'm saying the elevations, are the elevations going to be this, or are they gonna be different?
they're gonna be this.
Okay,
Yes.
so they're not gonna change from this?
No.
Now, the building materials different in building 2 than they were in building 1?
No, we're using the same building materials. Base, brick, stone, wood, the white vinyl windows.
Are those
Same
precast
materials.
floors?
Pardon me?
Are those precast floor or are they poured?
The garage is a precast structure, basically, but we're looking at different possibilities for the upper floors. Panelized, light gauge metal structure, post and beam, possibly. It's, you know, it's economics thing, still keeping it non-combustible, but maybe a lighter building, but still giving us the stiffness that we're looking for, but also then allowing us to get our STC and ICC ratings that we're looking for between floors.
What? Good, yeah, that's good. I had a couple questions. Is that new proposed overhead door on the inside, does that have glass panels in it? Or is that
We've,
opaque?
we've gone to various iterations of that. We're okay with anything that the existing homeowners feel does the best job for them. Right now, we were trying to create some visibility. It can be done by clear panel, can be done by chain. Is that correct? The chain can panel.
Yeah, we can roll up
There's
chain type.
various ways to do that. That's something that we'd be happy to, work to
The visual
collaborate.
access, direct visual
Right.
access is going to be really important there because it's very tight. That is going to be a little bit of a bottleneck at times. So just having some form of, visual,
Oh, right.
Non-communicative
Yeah, we don't want people
access.
surprised. No,
so that people aren't hitting their horn all the time.
no.
That's why we also are proposing on the walls, not to build a solid wall, but to have maybe a durable base, a masonry base, and then have like, for lack of a better term, like a picket, metal wrought iron type fencing from the top of that wall to the ceiling to create additional visibility while giving you the security.
We're talking about the inside?
Yes, inside. There's
The-
a whole,
the
the
side
whole,
walls.
it's a whole
Yeah.
security, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, does
We're
that
not-
show in there?
The
It
new
should.
wall, you're showing a
Right.
new wall.
Yes,
Correct.
correct.
You have shown it, the new garage wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right there.
And because these are apartments, doesn't look like there's going to be any storage for these folks. At least there's none illustrated in there,
No, we could.
like it is in the condo building. Fenced-in area,
You could put
storage.
storage in front of parking spaces.
There
Yeah.
just isn't
We
any
have-
shown, and I'm just wondering
Right.
if there was just.
We have the ability to create storage as we did in Phase 1 with storage sheds in front of the parking spaces.
Let's just say that my motive for my question is not to request it.
Right.
The motive of my question was to know if it was just omitted graphically or if it's something that you intend on doing.
Right.
Well, and again, I know this isn't shown, at least not in your package, but in part of our test layouts on the floors, there's a center section above the lobby going up.
It's like 5
We
or
had-
6 units
We had
there.
created storage rooms
Yeah,
above the lobby going up on each floor, so the storage is actually closer to the units. And,
Yeah.
Fire departments don't really like it when you store stuff in the garage anyway.
just a question.
Right?
Just wondering.
Who's responsible for maintenance on the door?
Which door are you referring to?
The inside door?
Well, first of all, it'll be I don't want to dance around it too much, but it'll be a new door and it'll be a lighter door in the sense that it isn't insulated and so on. So the maintenance of it will be, I would imagine, substantially less than an outdoor entry door. I think our initial position is that it's in response to a request by the people in the first phase. It's not a huge issue either way at this point. That's what logic would, but there's other things we're going to have to talk to Phase 1 about.
So that would become under their ownership?
Subject to easement rights, obviously people have to be able, to use it, but yeah. It'll basically just be on their side of the property,
Well,
yeah.
they'd be the only users
Yeah,
of it,
that's right. That's true. Yeah, that could be, it's just when things are in the common area, you say it's a limited common area, it's a common, but the point is that in effect, that's what will result in, you're correct.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, but we had, before, we had some.
That's how I came up with the spacing.
Yes, no?
Gentlemen, by the way, I don't recall our presentation before you, but I think we indicated that we have received IDOT permission to make a left turn in southbound on Milwaukee, and that would be a substantial enhancement to the development, and that's what we would commit to with the construction of the second building. There's a couple other things. There are opportunities for shared. They're not imposed, they're not required, but in many cases, you can share common area costs, one snow plower instead of two, one landscaper instead of two. There are areas where the association, while technically completely separated from each other, can enter into an agreement to derive benefit of two buildings on a common site.
Mr. Weiss,
Yes.
you've indicated earlier today that you're not sure whether this is going to be moving forward as a condo building or an apartment building. But yet, everything that I've read through this petition really kind of leans towards apartments. It's structured, the petition is structured for apartments.
I don't disagree with you in terms of what are the probabilities. Yes. What my preference would be, I'd love to sell condos instead of apartments. But you can't, you can't fight a market that isn't there. Again, for 10 years, we've gone back and forth revisiting the situation. There's really, it's never even come close to, well, we got a shot at it, something like that. Each exploration ended very early in terms of, the feedback we were getting. So I think we were trying to be, I didn't want to mislead people in the sense that, oh yeah, this will be a condo, most likely it's going to be a condo, most likely it's going to be an apartment. But again, we're not adverse to that. Philosophically, we're pro-condo. That's what we do. And that, I hope, explains why it's presented in that manner.
So if I could just say a word about that. It's not that we're not indicating, it's more like we can't make a commitment. I think Jerry, am I in front of a microphone or not? I don't know. I know I have a big voice.
Getting closer.
Okay, thank you. I know Jerry Jerry Weiss talked about what he perceives, and I agree. At 52 units, it became a very flexible product. There's been a question about the appropriateness of the parking, the heated and, garage parking, being more suitable to a rental property than a condominium, potentially, the tandem part of it.
Other way,
Pardon me?
more suitable for a condo.
Correct. Did I not say that? Okay. My concern about the condo, I think you have a condo here. If the market would provide for Velocity to sell 52 units, I think it has a good chance. You completed through a brokerage, it was not quite a new construction product, But over at where the Starbucks is, what was the not Optima, Opus product, did get sold out eventually, and they averaged 1,350 square feet in there. We're going to average over 1,450. And I feel confident we have units, and they sold one-bedrooms. So I think in the right market, you have a condo. I think the village manager, Mr. Carey, has seen maybe if it first gets built as a condo, it can have a history potential. I don't know if he was thinking of the Opus building, but it could have that same history. But I'll tell you, it's going to be a distinct property to the village regardless, because it's going to be a very large rental situation, and it's going to be kind of exactly where the market is approaching in a condominium, because it's a price point. It's all a price point right now, because if it weren't a price point, we could build some knockout 40-unit, 1,800 square foot units. But it is a price point market. It's sat here for so many years like this.
It's
I
always
think
about money.
Pardon?
It's always about money. But
It's the customer's money. It's not talking about us. Any other developer has got to look at the same situation. So I just want to say that everybody prefers a side-by-side when they have a three-bedroom. Every three-bedroom rental will have two, rental or condo. We will have to assign parking. The scope of the total parking allowed, tandem or side-by-side, is that only 25% of that building can rent or own a second garage in whichever configuration. The rent or their purchase price reflects the configuration. They make that decision for themselves. So it is a very, it has a little parking issue for a condominium in terms of supply of indoor parking. And that's why it's critical that they not be not too expensive. But they will be more than, they ended up, when they sold those condos, they still only averaged under $300,000 a unit. We would have to be, I think, like mid-threes or low threes on average at a minimum. But the market can change quickly, and there hasn't been a lot of condominiums put on the market. But we're not afraid of the rental market either, because not everybody wants to live at the corner of X and Z, XYZ, or buy a lot of retail. There are people who have always been drawn, including these first phase owners, to the beauty, the unique beauty and kind of oasis feeling of that site. So it's the yin, the yang, the pro, the con. I just wanted to say that we do have a vision for the property. We do have a vision for those floor plans. The bedrooms all have light and elevation. That's all that they match up to the elevation. We won't have to move anything, and I'd be happy. We do have some preliminary. I think they weren't included because Joel was kind enough to say, I didn't really go through them with a fine tooth, so, bathrooms might move a little or whatever, but we know what they're going to look like. They're going to be beautiful, and it's a beautiful exterior. It does not really compete directly with the townhome apartments or the very large multi-hundred unit sites.
I have a question for you, Joe. When this came back to the village board, how did they receive the potential for, or the lack of definitive approach of apartments or condos? How did they see that? What was their discussion?
So frankly, there really wasn't a great deal of discussion. It really revolved around the parking and the decrease in density, but there wasn't a great deal of discussion. I know they asked for some residential feedback, but really with the site plan changing as it did, I couldn't tell you. It was maybe a 10-minute conversation at most before the vote was made to remand it back. I mean, the comments that I've received have never really revolved around whether it's condo or apartment. I mean, that's not something that we've looked at. What we've, as a village, have always have addressed is that we want each unit to have the ability to be converted if at such a time the market were to change. And so we want, and that was true with the Oaks when that was developed, to make sure that if at such a time a conversion were to take place, that the appropriate association documents would be crafted and that the village would have rights to review and approve. And those are found, almost identical conditions are found in this, with the expectation that there would be some sort of association or maintenance agreement in place at such a time as if it were to become a condo.
Did you have a market study done for this area?
Not recently.
Okay.
It's a few years, a few years ago we were there. We have our pulse on, we can tell from a baseline if it's moved this way or that way and how much.
Your unit sizes, they're very generous, they're large, look like they're designed for condo, and your mix is you've got 25% ones, 48% twos, 27% three bedrooms.
Yes.
The current Chicagoland rental market for this type of building is 10% studios, 50% ones, 35% twos, and 5% threes.
Right.
So you're saying this is rental, but your mix doesn't reflect a current rental market. I mean, you have the average rental unit size for apartments in our area is about 950 square feet. You're saying these are 1,400 square feet. So I mean, what you've designed is really a condominium building.
It's a condominium product that we feel could be a successful apartment. And if it isn't, it's not going to get financed. It's basically a situation where you can't dictate. You can only go so far, and then the market will tell you where you're going to go. So the mix, what we envision here more is that you have a different renter than you do in the city. You have a different market than you do in the city. You've got people that'll rent that want their kids to go to Stevenson. You're going to have people that are owners, but they'll be renters not by necessity, but by choice.
The empty nester. The empty nester, which really has, I had a long, it's a little long in the tooth, but I had a long career in conversions in the city. And I don't want to be too anecdotal, but I know a lot of people, of course, who, have sold their homes and gone to rent in the city. But there are a number of people, and you draw, I know who you draw from. This is our 5th community in this general area, if you go back to Lakes of Lincolnshire. You draw from Long Grove, you draw from Deerfield, you draw, of course, from Vernon Hills. And it's only 52 units. That's the other thing. You don't have to create a market for 152 units. 52 units, 16, you probably know better than I did right now. I think it's 16 three-bedrooms, is that right, or close to there?
14.
14, yeah. There were, when we did, that is about I said if it went condo, I wanted to see more three-bedrooms there. There was, people working from home now, even if it's not a 3rd sleeping bedroom. There were a lot of draws, and I think that they, right now, they have a pretty strong rental market. I'm renting a unit over in the first phase. We have a unit remaining that we put on the market 5 years ago. There was no market to sell. And she's paying $2,500 or $2,325 for 5 years there. And that's the other thing, the longevity of it. I haven't had any turnover on anything I've put for rental. It's a unique site. Of course, you have to apply the rules, we know. You don't throw out the rules because it's unique. But it's obviously unique, and Jerry really gets to the bottom line. It's not going to get financed and built if we, without a current marketing study showing that we can absorb, that there's demand for the product and that we match it up. We can't make a market, but at 52 units, there's demand for it. I mean, we could all put our heads together and probably come up with 52 people who'd like to rent their units like this, brand new, built a little better, beautiful greens, green views, a little sense of solitude, people of a different taste.
But I'm concerned about the number of rental units that have been built and are currently being built
Oh,
in
yeah.
this area.
Yeah.
I know that there are two major developments in Deerfield. I know there's, Lincolnshire. I know there's other developments in Vernon Hills that are brand new.
I don't know when in Lincolnshire, but yes, in the area.
I mean, just, one of my friends just moved there, so I'm not sure what it's
And
called.
then I,
There's, in our business, you have to anticipate, there's always a lag in the development, the financing, the construction, and so on. So you can't look at exactly the situation right now. The market is pretty good at disciplining and governing and directing what you have to do. Is everything a success? No, everything's not a success. I'm not going to say that. But the point is, as the market evolves, we will evolve, we will respond to it. And believe me, our interest is for it to be a success, as you obviously could tell. We'll do the best, the best we can. Has the market lagged a little bit? Yeah, it's slowed up a little bit. It's still traditionally doing quite well. It's still a very strong market. I was worried about the rental market around here 8 years ago, and then I was worried about it 7 years ago.
But in the past 7, 8
Oh, no, I
years, there have been
understand.
so many new developments that are rentals.
Right.
But
And they
50
are high-end rentals. And I know that.
well, they're expensive.
Well, maybe not. They're in the same price range as what you're saying.
Right, but we feel we have.
Well,
we're
that's my
gonna
whole
offer
point. We're going to
something.
offer more square footage in a different location and only 52 units. So what percentage of the rental market in Vernon Hills is adding the 52 units?
That I don't know.
Oh,
Have you ever been a part of a sequence where a building is transitioned from apartments to condominium, where the ownership of the primary building was systematically reduced over time?
so I've done a conversion where you do a program to convert, but I don't think that was your question. The existing renters to condominiums where you incentivize that. I've done that. I did it for 15 years.
So when you're transitioning, when you're converting, now you're going to be teaching me something here because I don't know the answer to this. When you're converting, so you have a percentage of people who want to own condominiums or are purchasing a condominium and they're living in the same building as people who are leasing space that are apartments. That you still own the building or the owner still owns the building. How does that work?
Well, actually, Jerry, I mean, from a legal point of view, it's not a condominium, I don't believe, until you get a certain degree of ownership. That's not the
50%?
question.
60%?
No, it doesn't work that way.
But,
There's really the transition, again, it's somewhat predicated upon how a lot of these, in the past, they had to have mass closings, and, they would have to hit a certain point, they would aggregate all these closings, they would wind up closing 25, 30 units. I'm talking about downtown.
Big building.
Chicago buildings and so on. There's really not that much of a thing in terms of, you do the legal, you create a declaration, the ownership instead of into one person is now, it's the same ownership, but you've created a condominium regime for that unit. Nothing changes, a person has a lease. His lease is he's entitled to his lease, you can't kick him out, it's not a
Right.
forced situation. Attrition gets you there, incentives get you there. You get people, you say, hey, if I have demand and I want to get you out early, guess what? I'm going to move you. I'm going to give you your next couple of months' rent. But it's really, other than the fact that it takes a little work, there's no really strong impediment to it, other than a few more moving parts.
I can see that in a downtown building, but in a building like this one, it's kind of tougher because it seems to me that there'd be a portion of this building that would be unleased and unsold for a certain period of time. Now, you've planned for that.
There would be, oh, absolutely there would be. And you, if your sales were looking good, and if you were of the heartless type, you know, you'd want those units vacated if they weren't buying. The income, you know, you want to keep creating product if you're in a conversion. But you can't abrogate anybody's lease. And you make a great, you do the best marketing you can to convert, and you probably can at that price point, because there should be a relationship between the rent and the ability to own. A good degree of, generally, my recollection is at least 30%, 40%.
What was the social experiment like, having condo owners and apartment dwellers in the same buildings?
In that short period during the conversion,
Short
nothing.
period could be 1 year, 2 years.
Well,
3 years.
Jerry just, no, I've never had it. That would not be a very successful conversion of 52 units if you talked about that length of time. But Jerry kind of referred to it when he said, the people aren't really that different. They're really not that different. And so, no, I'm not, I don't remember it, and I lived through a lot of them. I don't remember there being any clash or issues related to that. I'm sure there were people who were disappointed they couldn't continue to rent, but as far as people living together, no. And also, I just would like to mention, it's a lot of years ago, but we had at least 4 mid-rise rental buildings, one in Oak Park, 2 or 3 in Skokie. They're all condos now. And they were only 40, 50-unit buildings, large luxury rentals. Every one of them's a condominium right now, and I think only one of them we converted. Sold them and to a converter.
I was just curious.
No, I mean, actually, it reminded me of something suburban, because actually, I was referring to a downtown experience primarily.
No, in this case, you're going to find people having the same monthly payment for the residents, whether it's a rental or a mortgage. You're going to have people with the same credit scores, quite honestly. There's no cultural clash. They're not people, I think, that are going to feel one way or the other. It's not like you're evicting people. It's not that kind of situation where there shouldn't be any animosity. I don't anticipate it. Is it a little harder? Yeah, it's a little bit harder. But it's certainly manageable.
Nothing about the development business is very easy.
Okay, at this time, we'll open up the meeting to the public.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
The rule is you have to come. Oh, I'm sorry.
One question. Mail delivery, packages, do you have a space in the building? Have you determined where that is?
Yeah, the lot is the same as in phase 1.
Well, I mean, the rules have changed since you built the other building. You have to have, if you're saying you have over 50 units,
the
you have to
microphone.
have, you're gonna have to have at least 5 boxes, linear boxes, and I don't see space for it, so.
You have to answer at a microphone.
No, I completely agree with the advent of order today, deliver tomorrow, that we have to have significant space allocated for package delivery. And in a building like this where you don't have a doorman, you really got to kind of concentrate it in the lobby kind of area, somewhere off the lobby perhaps. And we do have some opportunity to be able to accommodate that. We just haven't fleshed that detail out yet.
Okay, we ask that you, if you have a comment, to come forward, identify yourself, and speak from a microphone, either the stationary ones or the mobile ones.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? My name is Bruce Robbins, and I live at 425 Benjamin Drive, Unit 501, in the Phase 1 development. Good evening. My name is Bruce Robbins, and my wife Sandy and I live at 425 Benjamin Drive in Unit 501 in the River's Edge development. I am the Condominium Association President. I am here tonight to express many concerns on allowing Weiss Development to erect a 52-unit rental building attached to our 40-unit condominium building. I would like to give you some history to bring you up to date to the events that have transpired before, during, and since the construction of our condominium building, and what has been happening since we last met with your commission on April 19th, 2017. My wife and I moved into our condominium in June 2007. We are one of the original owners. We and the other original owners were told by the Weiss representatives that there would be 2 identical connected condominium buildings of 40 units each. Plans for a garage rooftop garden and gazebo adjacent to the existing pond were shared with us. Our building located at 425 Benjamin Drive was designated as Phase 1. Phase 1 was developed, marketed, and sold. After the building was constructed, there was no communication from Weiss Development as to the status of the connecting Phase 2 building to be located at 435 Benjamin Drive. For the next 9 years, there was no communication from Weiss Development to the condominium owners or board about any plans for development. In May 2016, Weiss Development contacted our board and requested a meeting which was held on May 24th, 2016. Weiss representatives informed the board that they were ready to begin building Phase 2 with new parameters in place. 60 units would need to be built to make this a financially viable project for them. They stated that they did not know if the units would be rentals or condominiums in this new development. At this meeting, our board began to voice many concerns. We told Weiss Development that we needed to discuss their new parameters and would get back to them with our concerns in a timely manner. A few days later, on June 2nd, 2016, we sent Weiss Development an email with questions and terms that we felt imperative before they moved forward with Phase 2. We never received a response to this email, never. There were a few times that our board tried to meet with Weiss to discuss the various issues. There was no compromise, as Weiss dictated to us that they were going to develop Phase 2 in a manner that made sense financially for them. The next time we heard from Weiss Development was on February 1st of last year. We received a notice that Weiss Development was appearing before your commission to present their Phase 2 development proposal. Many of our owners were present at this meeting to hear their plans. Weiss brought no renderings, and they stated to the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission that they needed certain variances to begin Phase 2 construction as a 60-unit rental building. Weiss Development was informed at this meeting that without renderings of their plans, the commission was unable to move forward with a recommendation. Their presentation was rescheduled for April 19th, 2017. This is their attitude. We don't need to bring in specifications and renderings. Your board just needs to approve so that our company can begin the Phase 2 development. It does not matter that we wasted the condo owner's time and your commission's time at this meeting. On April 19, 2017, Weiss Development presented a plan to construct 59 rental units and asked your commission for the approval of 2 variances. A 50% variance for the number of units from 40 to 59, and the other reduction in the number of parking spaces required per unit. Your commission voted 6-0 against variance 1. Your commission voted 6-0 against variance 2, 12-0. Not one vote in their favor. There were no formal scheduled meetings after April 19th meeting until our owners received a notice that Weiss was appearing before the mayor and village trustees on the evening of November 28th, 2017 to get approval for their variances so that Phase 2 could get started. They decided not to go back to your commission. As to them, your vote of 12-0 against them was meaningless. Various village officials raised concerns with Weiss, and your 12-0 vote was important to the mayor and village trustees. They said there would be no vote on this issue, and Weiss needs to start over again with the Planning and Zoning Commission. You are now up to date. I want to digress a few moments from my prepared remarks, and I want to read you something. On October 25th, 2017, we amended the Declaration of Condominium Ownership and Easement Restrictions and Covenants for River's Edge of Vernon Hills condominiums. This was originally filed in January of 2007 in Lake County. Because this was 10 years past, we were able to amend it, and we took many of Weiss's control over our Phase 2 development, and we restricted them dramatically. We hired an attorney to do this, and I want to read you something that the attorney wrote to me. Because of what we did to amend this condominium declaration, our attorney says at a minimum, this will force the developer to have to deal with the condominium association relative to his development plans. When I talked to him, he was rather smug, feeling that he could do whatever he pleased and that the association could do nothing about it. Weiss Development does not care about the owners in Phase 1. They don't care about the Planning and Zoning Commission. They don't care that we amended this thing. They don't care what the lawyer is saying. He was rather smug and said that we could do nothing about it. Back to my prepared remarks. For the past 10 years, there's been a vacant piece of land next to the Phase 1 building. These past 10 years have been difficult ones for the housing industry. Both builders and owners have suffered financially when the housing market collapsed. For the original owners of Phase 1 of River's Edge, since 2007, we have suffered a 20 to 25% decline in the fair market value of our units. If I were to use the low end at 20%, the original owners have suffered a cumulative loss of $3,400,000. I guarantee that Weiss Development made money on Phase 1 development, while we, the original owners, have suffered tremendously. When I became president of our condominium association, I was contacted by other condominium associations in and around the Vernon Hills area. I attended several meetings in which 8 to 10 association presidents were in attendance. There were issues on parking, maintenance, and other matters relating to their buildings. But the major issue, which dominated 90% of these discussions, was how to handle rental units in a condominium building. Every one of these associations either passed and restricted rentals in their building or were in the process of doing this. 100% were working on this. I brought this back to our board, and we have passed a resolution that restricts rentals in our Phase 1 building to 35% of our 40 units or 14 units. You cannot vote to allow this builder the right to attach a 52-unit rental building to our condominium building. Renters don't care if their behavior creates building violation. Owners do. Renters don't care if they damage the common walls and hallways and other common areas. Owners do. Renters do not care about the long-term maintenance or building components and systems. Owners do. Banks also take umbrage when a majority, over 51% of the units are rental. FHA loans, where down payments are not as high as a conventional loan, will not be given out by lending institutions if the rental percentage is more than 51%. If Weiss is allowed to attach a 52 rental unit building to our Phase 1 building, the rental percentage is 52 plus 14, which we allow, which is 72%. I am very concerned about the number of rental projects in our community. Every major street in Vernon Hills has a major apartment complex on it. Oaks of Vernon Hills, Pebbleshire Apartments, Amley Development, Court of Spruce, Court of Shorewood, Commons at Town Center, Emerald Point Apartments, Villas by the Lake, and now the new development in Melody Farms with the construction of 260 new rental units. Please do not allow another 52 rental unit development in our community. Weiss Development has stated that it does not make financial sense for them to build a 40-unit development for Phase 2. We have heard tonight that they are asking for a 30% variance to build 52 units in Phase 2 and keep the same garage entrance as the Phase 1 owners are using. As Phase 2 is to be up to 52 rental units, moving days will be very challenging for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 families. On the first of every month, there could be up to 5 units or more changing tenants and creating a logjam of moving vans in our landlocked parking area. I foresee these vans lining up on Milwaukee Avenue, creating a driving hazard for those residents attempting to enter or leave River's Edge. Security concerns, wear and tear on one garage door for 92 units, with over double the number of cars now coming in and out top our list. Weiss stated before the village at the November 28th meeting that the Phase 2 construction is a separate development. Well, if this is so, they have no right to connect this development to our building and use our garage entrance. There are other concerns to the variance request which need to be fairly resolved. Issues concerning parking, where will rental signage be placed, the size of the signage, how will disputes and issues with the tenants of the new building be dealt with, and how do we share in common areas and expenses once Phase 2 is developed. Speaking for my wife and myself, we love living in Vernon Hills. Every resident at our River's Edge condominium building supports many businesses in the community. We eat out at Vernon Hills restaurants, pay real estate taxes and sales tax that go to support this wonderful community. As you may know, I am an elected official. I'm starting my 3rd term as one of the 5 elected park commissioners, a position that I'm honored to hold. Before I complete my thoughts to you this evening, it is important that you remember that this new Phase 2 development is so different than what your board approved of more than 10 years ago, when the project had only one garage door entrance for Phase 1 and Phase 2 buildings. The outside of the building is different, the number of units is different, the size of the units is different, the parking inside and outside is different, the number of cars entering the garage is different, and the use of the building from condominium to rental is so different. Thank you for giving me this time to speak and your consideration on this matter.
I have a brief question.
Sure.
You noted that currently there's 35% of your property is rental?
35% of our units can be.
Can.
Right now, we have.
No, you indicated that they were rental.
Pardon?
You indicated that they were rental, that they were being rented currently.
Oh, no, we approved that up to 35% of the units, or 14 units, could be rental. Right now, 10 of the 40 units are being rented.
Just 10%.
But it could go up to 35 to another 4 more units.
Have you experienced difficulty with those 10 units?
We've had some issues with the rental owners not following our condominium rules. When they moved in, not using the proper space, not getting the elevator, not putting pads up. We have had issues with the rentals. We sure have. And there's an issue because, again, these people are moving in and out. It's not like they've been there 10 years renting. You know, they're transient. They come for a couple years and they move out, and new people move in. So this is not something where they come in and rent and they stay.
Can I ask a question also?
Sure.
So we're clear for the record, the statement that you read, is that on behalf of yourself and your wife, or is that on behalf of the homeowners association?
I wrote the statement, but I have spoken to many of the homeowners.
Fair
So
enough.
my thoughts are
No.
thoughts that represent the homeowners
Let me
also.
phrase it differently then.
Sure.
Is it a statement that was authorized to be provided on behalf of the association by its board?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is David Saltzman. I'm a resident at 425 Benjamin Drive. I've been there for 9 years. And just for the record, I want you to know that I'm also a member of the board. I am 100% against what Weiss Development wants to do. and a thought that just came to my mind, and I don't understand this. What developer do you think would want to build a building and not know what the end use is going to be? I mean, that's idiotic. I mean, it's like building the Sears Tower, and they're saying, well, we'll either make it an office building or we'll turn it into a super Walmart. I mean, you have an idea of what you want to build. You don't say, well, we'll build it and then we'll decide what we're going to do with it. I think that's ridiculous. And like I said, I am 100% against this idea, and not so much because of the size of the number of units or the garage door, which a lot of people are concerned about, which I am too, but there's other reasons that I think that they shouldn't be allowed to go ahead with this apartment rental. Number one, anybody that's had their own business knows that everybody's had ups and downs, and you've made bad decisions. You've made money, you've lost money. That's part of doing business. And what the Weisses are trying to do is they're trying to pass their losses onto the owners of the original owners in our development, because they don't want to lose money on this deal. So they're going to pass it on to us, and they're going to throw us under the bus. And I don't care what they say. I think it's a bunch of bull when they say that it's a plus to have put an apartment building next to a condo building. I mean, there's no logic in that. We don't want it. And I think, and like you said before, there's so many apartment buildings being built right now, it's going to be overbuilt. And even when we went in front of the commission, they even said that that there's, I don't know how many thousands of apartments are being built, but there's no way you're going to fill them. And even though they're saying there's only 52 units, well, it's 52 units that's going to affect us. And we're the ones that we've already lost money on our units, and enough is enough. And one of the things that also is a thing called reliability. When we bought our unit, we paid over $500,000 for our unit. And they told us, again, like Bruce had mentioned, that they were going to have a second condo building attached by, with a patio over the garage with the gazebo and making a really nice thing. So we were buying into a community. If we would have bought, if I would have 9 years ago, if I would have gone in there and said, yeah, we're going to buy this unit for over $500,000, and then when we finish this unit, we're going to build an apartment building. Do you think anybody would have bought there? I don't think so. We were going based on what they were projecting and what they were selling. They were selling an idea and they were selling a concept, and now they want to change it because they don't want to lose money. Well, why should we have to be the ones that are losing the money? Let them lose the money. They made enough money on their, they talk about their successes with their other condo buildings. Let them lose the money.
Yeah, I know.
And the other things that I'm concerned about are, number one, are not so much, like I said, not the garage doors or the number of units, but again, you have a couple issues that are for like public safety. You're a landlocked piece of property. And with all those cars coming in with having 52 more units, there's probably going to be 80 more cars that are going to be coming in and out of that apartment, that development. What's it going to be like in the morning when you want to go to work, and you're trying to get out on Milwaukee Avenue, and you're going to have to wait in line in order to get out of the parking lot, and it's a safety hazard when you want to come into the parking lot, because again, you have all the traffic, people going by at 50 miles an hour, even though that's over the speed limit, but that's the fact of the way people are and the way people drive. So I think I think it's a public safety issue for that. Also, it's pedestrian access. If somebody wants to take a walk, they have to cross Milwaukee Avenue in order to get to a sidewalk. So unless you cross in the middle of the street, you have to walk 3/4 of a mile to a mile each way to get to a stoplight and cross the street so you can get on a sidewalk and you can go for a walk. That's not right. I mean, by adding all these other people, it's just going to create a bigger mess than what there already is. And but the main thing that I'm concerned about is our property values. I don't care what they say. There is no way that they're saying that by putting an apartment building on the same property as a condo building will increase the value of the condos. Well, I'd like them to prove that. They say it, but they show no proof. They've never, as a matter of fact, they don't show anything. So I just wanted to Yeah, I just wanted to state my, what my values are about this property, and that, again, I am 100% against it, and I'm gonna do whatever I can. I'm gonna be in their face the whole time until this thing gets resolved, because I just don't think this is right. I didn't spend the money to buy into a mixed unit, condos and apartment buildings. And the only reason that we have renters in our apartment building is that when they were selling the units, they had a couple people that came in and wanted to buy 3 or 4 units, so the Weisses didn't want to pass up the sale, and they knew that if somebody comes in and wants to buy 3 or 4 units, they're not going to live in 3 or 4 units, they're going to want to rent them out. And they talk about Lincolnshire Place, they have no rentals in their building at all, because they didn't allow it. They don't allow it now, and they wouldn't allow it then. So when the Weisses were selling the units, they didn't rent the units. They didn't sell it to owners who were going to rent the units out. So I just wanted to be heard and let you know what my thoughts were. So I don't know if you have any questions for me, but okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Judy Kinney, and I live in Unit 201. I've been there for 10 years this spring. And I just have one small thing I want to get clarified. We talked about fire trucks, and I didn't quite hear what the outcome of this was. Has the fire department checked the site, and have they approved their egress and exiting power? I didn't think about that until tonight, and it was brought up, and I am quite concerned about it. I would really like to know if we have anything in writing, or if there's anything from the fire department that says that, yes, indeed, they can get in and out, and their ability to turn around or get their trucks in and out will not be impeded by this new building. And that's really my only.
So Lincolnshire Fire Protection District, Lincolnshire Riverwoods Fire Protection District has reviewed the plans. They are comfortable with the ability to operate within the parking lot as it's proposed and safely respond.
How are they going to get their trucks out of there? Backing out? There's a pork chop at the end.
It's really not about getting out, it's about getting in. So usually the problem is somewhat resolved before they leave. So leaving is not typically the issue. It's getting to the point that is of interest.
We've had them come before, and they don't have any problem getting in, and we did have a fire one day in the basement where the garbage chute, and water came gushing out, and everybody had to leave, and the fire trucks got there just fine. I'm just worried about the space. I mean, it's not the easiest place to turn around in. So, but as long as the FedEx guys and everybody can turn around and get out, okay. I mean, I'm not thrilled with the whole thing, but that was something that came up tonight that I hadn't thought of before. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question relating to the fire.
Can we wait till the end? Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Benjamin Ripstein. I'm here actually for my father, Stephen Ripstein, who is in Unit 203 and is one of the original people that purchased in the building. I feel responsible for his purchase and his decision to buy in that building as he was looking at some other properties, and I happen to know the Weisses. And unfortunately, I feel I made a mistake. I took that they were integrity, and they had integrity, and I thought that my father would be close to me because I live in Hawthorne Woods, and I'd be able to care for my father while he's in this building. Today I heard them speak. I heard Jerry speak, and I heard Jerry say some things like, tried to listen. Trying to listen isn't listening. You can hear by these residents that they're being crammed into a situation where they're being told without choice, they're going to end up having rental units and not have the condos that they were told. They have it on their website currently still today that there will be 80 beautiful condo buildings, and currently it's on their website for sale. That's what they were pitching to my father. That's why he purchased there, his hard-earned dollars, union bread driver, saved up his money and put his retirement money into this unit. So again, the trying to listen and the actual listening are two different things. My biggest concern, and the reason I'm here tonight, is my father's turning 70 years old. As he gets older, the safety for my father, he's single, he doesn't have a wife, he lives by himself. It's very important. We're discussing fire and the issues of getting fire and rescue in there. While I don't doubt the fact that the fire department has already gone ahead and reviewed these plans, I've also seen that there's a lot of things missing from the plans this evening. They don't have renderings for the inside, so I don't know how the fire department could have made an actual decision if they don't even know the layouts of the units and the buildings inside. So while they may have taken a preliminary look, I doubt that they've actually made a complete preliminary findings that it's an acceptable property and that they'd have the ability to get in and out of that building. It was brought up by Helen Weiss that, you know what, people now in these days, the reason they may have a 3-bedroom is they work in their homes. That's very true. So that would probably mean there's going to be more traffic, like Amazon and UPS deliveries that come in. Would those also impede potentially on the fire trucks that have to come into the unit if there's an Amazon or UPS truck in the way? Again, these are things, and there's a lot of things to take into consideration. You guys have brought up some very valid points, so I truly do appreciate it. Again, I'm here for my father. I'm here for his safety to make sure that the building stays safe. When you start to bring renters into a building, Jerry brought up credit scores. That's great that somebody might have an 800 Empirica score and my father has an 800 Empirica score. That doesn't give the fact that they're still somewhat of a transient individual, right? They don't care the same. I hear my father, being retired as he is, likes to tell me the problems that are happening within his building and the existing renters that have been in there. Hey, we have bylaws that says you have to bring the things that are inside your outside in. Guess what? The people they have problems with are the renters. They're the ones that don't care, and they're the ones that are leaving things in the hallways. Again, it's continued that they may have the same credit score, they may still have the same financial abilities, it doesn't mean they're going to treat the property the same. So again, I would just ask that you guys heavily consider some of the things and the points that were brought up this evening. I think under good faith and the fact that these individuals that purchased in this building were told that they were buying a condo building and it was going to be a phase 1 condo and phase 2 condo, that it continues to go in that direction. And if you guys choose to allow or that there's rental properties in, that they really, really, really truly check the impact of the additional units, the safety for the building, and the safety for all the residents that are existing in there, and the ones that may come into the new, whatever is decided to do with phase 2. So again, I just wanted to bring up these points, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me this evening.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Roy Roscoe. I also live at 425 Benjamin. Wanted to come up because Commissioner Morris raised the question whether Bruce had made an official statement. I wanted to come up and say everything Bruce said is backed by my opinion. Bruce's response here, we never felt we needed an official response to tell you this was certified, because Bruce's response was pretty much formulated from conversations in the garage, in the lobby, at local coffee shops, and this was the total tone of our last condo board meeting. So I just want you to know that we didn't feel any official, certified response, because everything he said rang true. Just wanted to mention too, I haven't lived there as long as the others, but I have great concern too. At the last meeting, Trustee Koch asked Mr. Weiss to provide proof that rental units near condos would not bring down the value because of Mr. Weiss's maintaining. Just doing a little searching, just wanted to read really quickly. Got a bank rate. Bank rate says every percentage of home ownership in an area that rises helps prop up everybody's value, $1,600. Realtor.com says high renter concentration brings close homes or condo values down 13.8%, more than a homeless shelter or a cemetery next to them. And by the way, we live next to a prison. So the Washington Post says appraisals are lower when more apartments in the area because there's less pride in maintenance for renter. And then this is interesting, looking at Chicago business, they said last year in 2017 in the Chicago area, Chicago condo sales were strong, less than 60 days on the market average. So I just would like to say that I think some of the facts were being presented might have been true a few years ago, maybe aren't true now. I would just want to comment that everyone here took a risk. Everyone here took a risk on market value. At the last meeting, the mayor asked Mr. Weiss why he doesn't just build a condo unit and take a risk. We took a risk. So by you voting no tonight, it just basically asks these people to build what was originally approved, which is a 40 condo unit. We took a risk buying a condo. I'm one of the newer owners. I've been there a year, and I already have concern about my value, and it would be truly terrifying in a few years if somebody wanted to buy my condo and couldn't get a loan because of the number of rental units, and then I would be out looking for recourse why somebody can't buy my condo. So anyway, but just wanted to let you know, Bruce's comments speak for me also. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, if there's no one from the public else wishing to comment, we'll close the public hearing portion. And I think the commissioner was ahead of you in line with this question.
When the fire department reviewed this packet, were they given any indication of apartment versus condo and the type of construction? Is it combustible or non-combustible? Is that in the report?
As it relates to rental versus condo, I mean, that doesn't matter. That's immaterial to their review. The important part is that the property be sprinklered per our code, which it is.
But construction type, did they review construction type? Because they have to fight the fire in two different ways.
Well, as per our building code, they will comply with that and make sure that there's appropriate fire walls, fire separation, and those materials. So while they did not review those items specifically, that's not abnormal to not review those. It's similar to any other development that has come across the commission. They don't review building materials at this point.
Do they eventually?
They do as part of the building permit process.
The fire department does?
Yes.
So they approve something not knowing how it's going to be built. If it's 4 stories of wood or if it's concrete.
Again, see, that's.
I don't think,
Jeff,
this will help. Has this been through technical review?
Yes. And it's been reviewed by.
Then it should have been reviewed to the standard that you're bringing up. If it's been through technical review,
I guess I don't understand how it's been through technical review if we don't know the construction of the building.
agreed, because I asked if there was going to be a wood truss, wood construction, and I was told that it's not, but it might be something else, post and beam. So I don't know.
What's permitted on the
Has it really been through technical review?
But
Yes.
what's permitted under the ordinance or the building code? Oops.
Building code for buildings over 3 stories, there's specific structural requirements that are required as part of that. With particular construction, there are variations that can be granted as part of the building code, provided specific materials are utilized. They have a certain fire rating. That's consistent with the Oaks, where there's wood construction, or Focus, where there's also wood construction. But because the materials that were utilized, it was allowable by code. That was done at the building commissioner level, and those were reviewed by him to ensure that those all met the appropriate fire ratings.
So then, to understand this conversation on my right and my left, the fire department review of this was these schematics for this multi-story building pursuant to our code. If then, in the building permitting phase, they seek a departure of some sort to one of these alternates, that then goes through an additional review by the building department and the fire department?
Yes.
Before it's approved? Okay.
I mean, the village takes making sure we're following the code, I mean, very seriously. We would not approve any or issue any permit that we felt did not meet the appropriate standards that are required, and nor would the fire department or fire district allow for that.
And we're getting a little beyond the purview of, I believe, what our task at hand is, when we're talking about construction methods. But if, I guess I just want to leave it at that. Because the methods of construction, yes, they do fight fires differently, and they use different equipment, and they need different access. But if the fire department has indicated that they can access the site to do what they need to do, I think the only thing we can do at this point is not question them. Other than to say, we have concerns because we can't control what they approve or what they do not approve.
In my opinion, we have a number of issues with this proposal, and the fire may be on there, but it's not toward the top of the list. Well, it's important. Safety is obviously important. There's so many other issues. When this came before us 10 years ago, I thought this was a terrible idea. You're building on a very narrow piece of land. You're landlocked. Your parking is what your parking is going to be forever because you're not going to be able to park anywhere else. And I don't see much difference of what we see tonight from what we saw in April, from what we've seen in the past. I don't feel it's complete. I care about the residents of Vernon Hills. I'm very concerned if what they did say is correct, that on your website you're still saying 80 condo units. Doesn't matter, I don't want a response. There's a lot of issues with this. I will not vote for this, and it doesn't matter what anybody else has to say. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
I think that I could refute almost every statement that's been made against this development, but I'm going to go to two that are very important. Every person who bought at this development, whether it was last year or 10 years ago, signed the same contract. In that contract, it explicitly states that there is no representation whatsoever, written or oral, with regard to Phase 2. I'm not trying to make this a gotcha legal situation. I'm trying to say is there was no surprise here. Every condominium declaration that every person received and was reviewed by their attorneys or not had 6 pages of the declaration, I think page 56 to 62, I'd be happy to present it to you if you wanted to, saying we can make no representation. All we can tell you is that the next building will be built, can be built as allowed by the Village of Vernon Hills. And we've made no representation at all in terms of what. Did we want it to be a condominium? Yes. Did we anticipate? Yes. But no developer will put himself in an obligatory situation where he says, I'm going to build this the way it is no matter what. At least I don't know one. Let me just say that. That's standard. And so, is it a disappointment to the people? Yes. Their property values have gone down, not by my actions, but the actions of the market. I haven't been building there. You've got an empty lot there. You've got an undeveloped, an unfinished development with whatever stigma that may or may not entail, and those prices have gotten hurt. So I know they're unhappy with that, but I don't think I was the cause of that unhappiness. Now, a very important thing is this conflation about rentals. Yes, at one point, we had the right, not the obligation, but the right, if it was within the first 10 years, to put Phase 2 joined with Phase 1 as a condominium association, if we should choose to build it that way. That period has passed. We have no right to do anything with regard to their association per se. Separate entity, not one unit in our building is charged against any unit in their building. It's like having a neighbor. Other than the fact that there's easements, it's just like having a driveway or an alley where 2 people can go down that same street. Not one unit will be, not one rental, if it should go that way, will prohibit the financing of Phase 1. So that's incorrect. I'm happy to get you legal opinions. I've talked to about a half a dozen people. There just is no, it doesn't work that way. They're two separate things. It doesn't count at all. All they have to worry about with regard to FHA financing is their building, and they have. And the declarations that we create, and that's part of the Illinois Act, says that any board, no matter what it says, that at some point, if rentals impact the ability to finance that building, FHA financing, no matter if the developer says I can rent my whole life and everything like that, the building has the right to control that, and that's an important, and I can understand that, but I think people are scaring people by saying this because it will not impact their ability to finance one bit. And therefore, I think it's very unfair. I don't know if it's in good faith or not. I've made this statement before. I've represented that. I'll give them legal opinions if they want. It does not impact their ability to get financing. I think those are the two major points. If there's something really that you feel you would like me to address, I'd be happy to address any and all. We've met repeatedly, this idea of not responding to people, the idea of we've met with the mayor, we've met with them at the library, we've met with them at the village. They send an email to us. We responded to 7 requests, 6 in the affirmative with regard to how the property would be developed. We've tried to be responsive. We want to be a good neighbor. We want them to be a good neighbor. We want this development to be successful. If people are going to trash an apartment rental, and I'm the owner of an apartment rental, I think they're hurting me more than they're hurting the people that live on the, 150 feet away through a common area and a garage. So in most cases, we do not have a conflict in interest. We have joint or joined interests in terms of the success of this property and the development of this property. And again, the fact that the site hasn't been changed only shows the neglect of the site. It doesn't show us trying to trick anyone. It's the fact that there's been no activity, no one's even looked at that site in some period of time. Again, if there's anything in specific that you really feel you want to be addressed, I'd be happy to address it. there was a series of things. The numbers were thrown around 20 and 30 and 40% increase for cars, and 124 to 128, at less than 3%. I've heard 25%, I've heard 30%, I've heard 40% here. It's not fair. Those are not real. We can have our subjective opinions, we can have our own approach to the situation, but you can't make a number 4 into a 30 or 40% of a garage or change on that.
4 cars.
4 cars, and that's all it does. So anyway, I think those are important things that I wanted to bring to the Plan Commissioner's attention, and we appreciate your consideration.
And the 4 cars are amazingly critical to the count for any luxury product. Additional parking for the larger units is so critical to the success.
If it was
So
ever
they're-
converted to, or
Yeah.
to be looked at as a condo, 4 spaces, but again, that's 4
Even in
spaces out of
rental.
128.
All right, I wanted to say one thing because, and I'm trying not to, I have a long history with every single person here. And so and I understand that they are protecting a valuable interest of theirs. I understand what home ownership means. I understand what that asset is to each and every person who owns their home. And I kind of remember the history of every one of this. I'd like to say that the last speaker bought a unit. I sold it. I sold a model home to, can you just pronounce your last name for me? Roscoe. While the rezoning sign was front and center. I gave it to an agent. The agent asked me to come out and meet with the client to explain what was the nature of it. Prior to his purchase, the sign was already up saying there was a rezoning going on for more density. So, it's hard to, it's a little tough to hear when that was the circumstance. I'd like to say a lot of the other characterizations are not as blatant, but pretty close. I've shown the property that was close to a year ago, that sale, and I went out there and because I'm not out there like they are. There's no question, there's nothing that more critical to that site than the left turn in to the value. Nothing. You see people leave and they can't, and they want to come in from the north and they can't. There's absolutely nothing. You go onto the site, and it sounds like a lot of people have. You walk to the, people get used to just about anything after 8, 9, these are original owners. There are newer owners too. But holy cow, there's a stub of a garage there. That garage is, it sits like a stub. And I was actually horrified when we appeared. They were saying, children, well, but we love it. Our grandchildren play there. I was like, we're putting up a fence. I was a little disturbed to hear that that site isn't for that purpose. And maybe the value of condominiums, suburban condominiums, has not recovered 100%, including people who bought at Lincolnshire Place, which is the last development we did, and probably had closings up until about 3.5 years ago, because it was a slow, brutal, hard. And they're probably down 5, 7, 9%. Partially because of the price point they were. There's a lot of reasons for it. This community will never actualize its investment till that site is completed. And we have completed sites from other developers. And we could have I don't want to take up more of your time. I'm confident that the lack of completion, the lack of the left turn in, and the unknown, nothing hurts that more than the unknown, is responsible for a great degree of property value lost there, and some of it still, the market is soft in that product, a little soft. And if there's any other questions, and to this commissioner in particular, when you said, Mr. Gorig, and I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, you couldn't vote for this under any circumstances. When we came back to address this, and I said I wouldn't say a word, but okay, when we came back to address this, we followed the 3 recommendations that we were sent away with on the 6-0 vote. We followed, we studied them, we re-engineered it, we thought we were addressing concerns. We know we can't address a second garage separation. We can't do it. We've tried it. We've engaged all the professionals we can. But we thought we were addressing the concerns of the Plan Commission. So if there are further that you could enumerate for us, we would continue to do so. We're not proud, we're not closing our ears, we're not arrogant. We're all about trying to get it done and get it done right.
And I do understand that markets change and developers have issues, especially after what we went through in the market.
We can't make a market is what it is. We can't make a market.
And I live in a townhouse condo development, and we too, as they stated, have limited the number of rentals.
Oh, yeah.
Because we invest in our home just as a single family home does.
Oh, yeah.
And we can talk about the value of these homes until we turn blue. We can get opinions from everybody. We're looking at what's presented to us. And there's some very odd things in here. Some of these parking spots are very strange. I don't know how you're going to get into them. This site was a problem 10 years ago. This site is a problem today.
So if we could have any specific direction, we'll be happy to take it as well.
You're perfuming a pig, unfortunately.
Oh, well, I think it's a stunning property, and I think
I do too.
the people who live there.
I'm not saying it's not a stunning property. I'm
yeah.
saying this development, I just have issues with.
All right, well, thank you. If I could.
You just brought up, and I was just reading a letter from Green Guard saying that a garage entrance on the east is impossible, and I would agree with that. But on the south face of that corner, you could easily bring in a new garage entrance.
You would lose parking.
Exactly.
You need every spot in there.
But it's not impossible. You just stated that you couldn't find a spot.
I'm not the person, actually.
The interior spot, not the exterior.
That would alleviate some of their concerns of having their separate entrances.
But this is, it's probably my fault for not articulating
Yeah, and he hasn't touched it.
This garage always contemplated one center for 40 units on either side. What we're bringing here does not in any substantial way change that use. If you're concerned about the separation, you achieve that separation by that second interior garage space. Tearing into a building in that space and losing, we've looked at it several times. If that would have been a really feasible way, we would have probably saved a lot of aggravation for everyone. It makes no sense and it accomplishes nothing. I think that what's happening is, it really doesn't, because it's no different. Maybe it accomplishes something, but it does not accomplish anything substantially than the way the project was first developed and the way the people anticipated and the way it was intended to be used.
Because only 4 more cars go in.
It's not about, if it's apartments and they're concerned, the current residents are concerned of apartments versus condos, it would separate the two uses.
Well, that was
No,
what
the interior garage does.
that was what
Where's the transition?
that was what
Maybe
we were directed
There is
on.
no access, there is no transition from one to the other. All they do is they go out a garage door. That's when they meet. That's it. They can't access their cars, they can't access their garage space, they can't access their units, and they can't access their lobbies. So it's just taking on a huge item and for no benefit, really. No, what we're seeing is a visceral response and an unhappiness with the expectations.
To
I
a different
understand
type
that.
of
But that's not-
resident.
Yeah, but we're not.
Person.
Okay. We're really not addressing that in any way by moving another garage door, because we haven't accomplished anything by that, other than, spend money if that makes people.
Just so you know,
Yes.
when you look elsewhere in the village, we recently had another development that was a condo development that they were going to put a twin building, and because the market changed, they couldn't. They wanted to put an apartment building. We didn't approve it. The village board didn't approve it.
Okay.
They went back and they reformulated and they ended up doing something else that addressed the parking issues. My point in bringing that up is the way we're addressing this is not unique to you. So, meaning, we recognize that the market has changed. This developer came back with a different plan and it ended up getting approved. We care about the residents that are in the village. You can say that apartments aren't going to impact the value of their home. I disagree. Now, that's not going to influence my vote.
Okay.
That doesn't, but I just wanted to point
Well,
that out.
we did respond. We thought we responded. We lost the variance. We provided the parking. We created the separation. We
Touch the
tried to
microphone.
address the concerns that were raised. And that's what we hope you realize.
Can I make a comment and a question?
Go ahead.
And I apologize for coming late, but you can blame Metro for that. But I have read the materials, and I was here at the last hearings. And I'd like to focus us perhaps back on, I think, what the commission is really here for. We're really here for a relatively narrow question. You're asking us to amend a pre-existing special use to allow for an increase in density.
Yes.
Okay, that's really what your request is here this evening.
At this point, with the variance going, yes.
Put the variances aside for a moment.
Right.
Okay. The special use, the way I understand it, either for better or for worse, did not articulate whether it would be a fee ownership unit or whether it would be a building with then rentals in it. Rather, the underlying zoning, which is R7, is multifamily, and under the multifamily zoning, it can be a rental unit.
Yeah.
So I don't think really at this point it's a question of use. I also don't think it's a question of a second building, because when this was originally approved, there was a contemplation of phases. So there was always a contemplation that there would be something. Put aside what that something is for a moment. I also don't think it's a question of this joint entry to the garage. It was intended, I believe, and I sat on the commission back then, in those early years, that there would be a joint entry that would go to a phase 1 and a phase 2 something building. I also don't think that the question of the police and the fire is really a question that's anymore before us. Our police department and the fire protection district reviewed it. Although we may not agree with their recommendation, they did the review of it, and we would rely upon them that before any permitting occurred, that the building department as well as the fire department would have to approve this as well. So I don't think we're looking at a situation where someone's going to build something that is not going to meet code and fire codes. In addition, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, that Public Works and to extent IDOT has reviewed this because of the Milwaukee Road aspect and the left in.
Correct.
Okay, so I don't think that's really the question. Really what the question, I believe, comes down to for you to present to this commission, or at least in my view, to be able to vote here, is when we look at the special use provisions, although not specific, we do have section 18.3, which are standards. And it seems to me that if we are going to change a special use to increase density from 40 to 52, I think we have to address in particular the particular standards that the village has set forth to have not the right but the privilege to seek a special use and change or difference from our underlying zoning code. We don't really have those in front of us, and I think from my standpoint that would be important to see, because that, I think, is the concrete example or answer as to should this commission and should this village then change the special use to increase the density. Now, I put the other zoning aspect aside for a moment, which is the question of setbacks, because in brutal candor, no one has really, at least as I've been here, talked about those as creating issues. Now, if they do, we can talk about those separately, but I think the fundamental or the hurdle issue that the village needs to address through this commission, and maybe that's why it came back to us, is does the increase in density from 40 to 52 units, putting aside whether they are rental or whether they are ownership units in a condominium regime, does that meet the standards of our zoning code? And in meeting the standards of our zoning code, if there's issues under any of those standards, I think that's how the residents that are proximate to this particular proposed Phase 2 development, and we're not saying what it is at this point, can then respond specifically. And I think in that way, we can then, or at least when I say we, I should say me can, which is not good English, respond in a more specific manner and say, here's what I think. I really don't have any ambition to, despite the fact that I know many architects and their friends, they sit up here with me. I'm not an architect, I'm not a developer, I'm a lawyer, so I have a much more linear view of the world. And what I need to see, and I've not seen this evening, and I apologize if maybe I didn't make it clear enough with the last one that I chaired, is that if we would vote on a change in density from 40 to 52 units in a Phase 2 building, does it and how does it meet the 18.3 standards in our ordinance? And if there are issues in any of those, how can we, to grant a privilege of development to a developer, meet those to the satisfaction of the residents as well as to the village and the developer? Because we're not here to stop people from developing. Development is also a good thing. There's an old saying that goes on many plan commissions: you became anti-development after your house was built. But that's really not what we do. We want to be able to have positive development in the community, for its residents, for its future residents, for those that come to also develop. So from my standpoint, what I'm suggesting, and I don't know whether you want to respond tonight or not, is that for me to vote either way, rather than just say I'm present, I would like to see, or I would need to see, how does this increase in density, changing a special use for a PUD from 40 to 52 units, get addressed in the specifications in our ordinance? And if there's issues, how do we address those issues so that the neighbors, which are the proximate people that are most touched by it, quite candidly, I live on the west side of the village. Do I know where this is? Yes. Have I driven there? Yes. Have I gone in there? Yes. But day to day, I do not. How can they then address with you those standards which the village has recognized as being important, to either say, yes, this is something we can go ahead with, or no, this is something we need to rethink? And that's just my view. I don't know about anybody else's.
Yeah, direction is something we're always open to. I don't remember 18.3 exactly, but I'm going to look at it later tonight, I assure you that.
It might have been part of the original application?
It is.
It probably was, but we're
It's-
looking at
it
something a
is,
little
and it's
different.
covered, but it still needs to be addressed. That's part of
That's
every
great.
application. Anyway, from our point of view, we would be delighted to try to solve, or resolve, or answer and address that question for everyone's better, appreciation of what we're proposing, how it impacts and so on, and direction is always helpful, and we'd love to come back as soon as we've had a chance and see what sort of presentation we need and, how intensive it is and how easily we address it, or what we'll need, maybe other professionals, so on and so forth, but we're more than happy to do that.
And just so you're aware, because nobody's voted up here, and Mr. Heidner's obviously chairing this evening, that's my view. There's 6 others, and
No,
then there's a very important
I know.
other individual, which is the staff view from the Village of Vernon Hills, that needs to weigh in on that, and, it could come out that they think, I'm
Well,
absolutely nuts,
we've
which they've done before.
Yeah, we've tried to get as much feedback as we can from staff. We appreciate from any commissioner any feedback. We understand you've expressed yours. If anyone else has a specific or one that we could really focus on, that would be helpful to us and probably helpful to the whole development as we're presenting it. So we're more than open to that.
I actually think that was a good point, Hal, that focusing on the special use that was approved originally. I missed that. So that was a good observation, and I agree with you.
So does that mean you'd be open to changing your position if they presented
Yes.
their agreement to 18 point?
Yes.
Okay.
And at the expense of talking too much, which as a lawyer I sometimes do, a lot of times we see 18.3 standards that are simply answered, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
That is very.
Not a good answer.
I've been warned in the
That
past
is
by
not-
villages.
We prefer to see things that say yes, and here's either how or why, or if it's conditional, this is, where the
I
flexibility is.
understand.
So,
I've tried to get away with
Okay.
it for sure,
Yeah.
but that doesn't work either.
but the right side of the dais has this vote.
Okay, yeah, I understand that it has to be substantial, not a rote.
And I think that's then something that, the residents that are, the most impacted residents of the Village of Vernon Hills, because they have the day-to-day, touching of this, can then, better, understand and better, comment.
It's more than fair.
I think your challenge is going to be to demonstrate you're not injurious to your surrounding neighbors. And that's one of the parts of 18.3.
Okay, it's coming back to me now.
And
And
that's-
basically, we
that's
have
what
one
your
neighbor.
task is
We're not
going to
worried
be.
about the Depke people, I believe, at this point. Yeah, it's kind of coming to mind, and I think we'll address it more substantively and make it meaningful.
So with that, you want to come back at a future date?
Yes,
Okay.
without looking at I don't know how long it would take for us to be responsive. I would coordinate with Joe in terms of when the appropriate and what your calendar looks like, but we would want to come back.
Do you have a comment?
I do. Well, I agree with Hal's comments. I would hope that when you come back next time, that you also provide the building diagram, the layouts of the units. Every one of the rental units that has come in front of us for the past, God knows how many years, we see floor diagrams. We see what the units are going to look like, how they're laid out. So whether it's going to be a rental or a condo, I think we as a committee would like to see what, I'm speaking for myself, what these units are going to look like.
Yeah.
And the floor plans. So I would hope that you would also have that as well. So.
One little comment from me is, it's competition around here. The different housing developments are in great competition with each other on what they're going to be able to lease, what they're going to be able to sell. It seems to me that you're in a position where you're going to have to compete really hard with some of these other developments. Some of them are turning out very nice, and you do have a unique site. You have great opportunity, but to compete, it's going to take a lot of design, a lot of good planning, and honestly, it's gonna take a lot of support from your neighbors. So, your neighbors and their views are, business is hard, but your neighbors are very, very important here. So, I think listening to them is gonna be a really big deal.
Okay. So you'll work it out with Joe as far as when you might
Yes.
come back?
I mean,
Motion to continue the public hearing?
Yeah.
we would need a motion to continue the public hearing. Just for a point of information, we're not going to schedule a meeting on Valentine's Day, which is also coming up, just so everyone knows.
You didn't want to spend it with us?
No, no.
You think we'll pick
February
up
21st and February 28th are both dates that I know were available by the commission members.
I'm sorry, Joe, could you say that, what day?
February 21st and February 28th
Okay.
would be potential dates that I know would be available to the commission members. I know February 28th, I was going to be a date, I was going to be talking to the commission members after this particular section of the meeting to advise them that we were going to have an informal meeting to discuss a completely different topic that does not involve residential development. But be that as it may, we can certainly work with the schedules and verify.
I think we'll be as flexible as necessary, obviously, and that's fine.
Both those dates are fine.
But I think I just want to make sure I understand from the commission's perspective what you're looking for the petitioner, because we spent a lot of time discussing. I don't want to take any more of your time at the next meeting over points that we could have made sure we were provided. So it's, make sure 18.3 is fully included, layouts of units and floor plans. I suspect we want to look at a letter of more detail from the fire district. So while not the purview of the commission typically, we certainly are happy to provide that. So we'll make sure that that gets sent over as well as part of the package of information.
Just a comment on the fire thing. It's not necessarily that. If it's what construction type are you building to, because that's going to affect the height of the building and thus the proportions and scale of the elevations. Because the floor system's going to change, so the look of the building's going to change. So if you can narrow that down, that would be helpful.
Could you email me exactly what you're looking for?
Once he determines the construction type, that should dictate how the elevation will appear.
Okay. So you're looking for construction type? Okay.
So I only want to say, and I don't build the buildings, but I have a distinct recollection of losing kind of a critical 7-8 months that we pulled off on the last, in Lincolnshire, because we started to build it, there was a switch from steel to concrete as you bid the building. You know, the building had the opportunity to come up with a steel construction or a poured and and it did affect the height. Fractionally, the change we made, but I think it took about, I mean, it was critical in the end to be able to switch because we were able to keep prices down a little lower.
We're
So
gonna
it's
meet
very,
the height no matter what.
it's very, I just remember that
Yeah.
because I don't want to come back and be in failure or spend another $500,000 building a building because I committed to X, but then wood went to commodity prices. Basically, it's a big building. And that's the only thing that just popped into my head in terms of a commitment in that manner. You're right, I remember, because I remember the windows, I wish I'd made them another 3 inches, whatever happened, because of that change. But I don't think we varied in any material way, and I know that's an amorphous word, but just inches at a 4.5-story building.
Yeah. Well, the height is, right now, it's designated.
That's
as
my only
special
concern.
use, and it's, I think, 55 points, 55.5 feet, and anything, our construction right now is the highest envisionable in terms of that. So anything, any change in construction type or so on would only lower it a few inches. It wouldn't, escalate the situation that I can conceive of, at least.
Well, that's information you're going to need to provide before we schedule the meeting.
I'm sorry, say again?
We're going to need another construction type before we schedule
Yeah.
it for the meeting.
We will. That's fine.
Can I just make one more comment unrelated to that?
Okay.
And just a comment to the residents, I mean, however we got to where we are today, the housing downturn was a bad thing. It was a bad thing for everybody. And whatever's happened in the past has happened in the past. Hopefully, we can move forward, complete this site in some manner that works for everybody. So, I mean, I understand your concerns, I share them, but hopefully as we move forward addressing 18.3, we'll do it with the intent of finishing this site in a good manner for everybody. So, I guess what I'm saying is, we got to compromise, folks. All the way around, but thank you.
Okay,
So-
can I have a motion to,
I'm sorry, just, because we're continuing the public hearing, we actually have to continue it to a specific date. And I would suggest February 21st.
Is that okay?
Yeah, and it can always be, I mean, I assume it's going to be okay. Again, I have to look at 18.3 and see what what we've taken on and the construction type, but it sounds good to me.
Okay.
So I'd move to continue case 1701's public hearing to February 21st, 2018 in Village Hall.
is there a second? Second by Mr. Cotton. Roll call?
Commissioner Baloo?
Yes.
Commissioner Cotton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hesner?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidner?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulcrone?
Yes.
Commissioner Gorog?
Yes.
Commissioner Morris?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As it relates to development review, we've got not a lot going on at the present time, though we have a lot of construction going on. One thing that we have on February 28th will be called a working group or a concept presentation by District 73 and the Park District to discuss and show what the preliminary site plan will be for the proposed kindergarten center north of the Sullivan Center. That is a collaboration between the Park District, the library, and the school to construct a 35,000 square foot kindergarten center with approximately 18 classrooms. There will also be additional, as part of the overall development of that area, an additional parking lot that will be constructed on the village-owned Lot 2, as well as future construction of a library addition. Primary discussion will be to kind of explain what the site plan is going to be. Obviously, traffic is a major concern on that roadway, so we'll be sharing with you the proposal and how they're looking to mitigate those concerns for vehicle access to the kindergarten center, and so that's another thing we'll be discussing on the 28th. Also, potentially on the 28th, we might be discussing short-term rentals, in other words, Airbnb type uses, and then at some point down the line, we'll be discussing small cell sites, though I likely won't have all three of those items on agenda because I want to make sure everyone can be there, as well as wanting to make sure that we're not overloading the agenda on what could be some lengthy conversations about the site plan and other things going on. Those are the current things. We are reviewing a potential outlot to the mall property. So we're reviewing that currently. That may be going to the concept review on at the board level on February 20th. We have a number of questions that we need to have addressed as part of the overall long-term vision of the mall. And at this point, I'll leave it at that while we're, but we'll be back to you on that in the future.
Approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of January 17th to approve. The only comment I have is on page, oops, they're not numbered. Point number, or motion number 4, I guess it is, doesn't have a second. It says second by Commissioner Blank,
We will add.
and I don't remember who seconded it.
I will go back and review the tape and make sure that's appropriately noted for the record.
Okay. With that correction, do we have a motion to approve? Roll.
Usually
Or
we do
voice
acclamation.
vote?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I was abstaining, I wasn't
Two
here.
abstain.
Sneaks by. Sneaks by.
Anything else?
Okay. Nothing else? We have a motion to adjourn? Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.
No? Okay. Sorry to hear that. Oh, well, then I don't feel bad then. I'll go get the plat, the Mylar. No, I will get